it is a fact that on a daily basis, the UK and its allies are being hit by literally thousands to millions of cyber attacks. We know that there are three traditional domains for conflict: land, sea, and air. We're now fighting in five domains, if you include cyber and space as well. So this is a very serious issue, quite clearly, malign actors are actively, deliberately, willfully targeting the UK, the USA, and other Western allies.
The Defence Secretary Grant Shapps has told the Commons that state involvement in the cyber attack on the Ministry of Defence cannot be ruled out. But he did not accuse China of responsibility, despite widespread reports that it is responsible.
For reasons of national security, we can't release further details of the suspected cyber activity behind this incident. However, I can confirm to the House that we do have indications that this was the suspected work of a malign actor, and we cannot rule out state involvement. This incident is further proof that the UK is facing rising and evolving threats, and as I set out in my speech in Lancaster House in January, the world is, I'm afraid, becoming somewhat more dangerous.
Well, the Defence Secretary said there was evidence of potential failings by the MOD contractor which ran the payroll system with data on 270,000 military personnel. But it was his Labour opposite number, John Healey, who named the company as SSCL, Shared Services Connected Limited, and criticised the government's handling of the issue.
Despite the Defence Secretary's statement, he still has many serious questions to answer. On the breach itself, who held the data that was hacked? When was it discovered? When were ministers told? How was it leaked to the press? On the contractor, Defence Business Services say Shared Services Connected Limited has the MOD contract for core payroll and other business services. How many contracts does SSCL or its parent company, Sopra Steria, have with the MOD? What action has been taken by other government departments with similar SSCL contracts?
Well, China said the accusations that it was involved were completely fabricated and malicious slanders. But the former Conservative Party leader, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, challenged the Defence Secretary to do more to tackle the threat from China. Well, James Sunderland is Conservative MP for Bracknell. He's a former colonel in the British Army and also chairs the all-party parliamentary group on the Armed Forces Covenant. Good evening to you, James.
Hi, Carol. How are you?
I'm very well. And what did you make of the explanation that we got from the Defence Secretary today?
Well, I think he said what he could in the chamber today. He clearly knows more than he was letting on. I suspect there are security considerations, which is why he wasn't able to be more forthcoming. But it does seem, from what people were saying in the chamber today, that the press had been briefed previously that it was China. But of course, that was not confirmed today.
Yes, we heard the Defence Secretary saying that there were security reasons for not naming China. But it's clear that sources within the government, within the MOD, have briefed that it was China that was behind this. I mean, do you think that the government's being unnecessarily coy about this?
Well, I'm not going to join the bandwagon of China bashing because, of course, we have to work with China. You can't ignore China. We're doing a lot of trade with China, but by the same token, it's necessary for politicians to call out this odious behaviour when it happens. But it is a fact that on a daily basis, the UK and its allies are being hit by literally thousands to millions of cyber attacks. We know that there are three traditional domains for conflict: land, sea, and air. We're now fighting in five domains, if you include cyber and space as well. So this is a very serious issue, quite clearly, malign actors are actively, deliberately, willfully targeting the UK, the USA, and other Western allies.
And in this instance, they do seem to have accessed data on 270,000 military personnel serving in the Army, Navy and Air Force. I mean, you've served in the armed forces around the world. What do you think is going to be the reaction of those people whose personal details have been hacked?
I think there is an expectation that personal details, particularly of military personnel, are secure and safe. There clearly has been a security breach, clearly a very clever, deliberate hack to get access to a database. The number is interesting, 270,000. Why is that interesting? Well, there are approximately 200,000 regulars and reservists. So there's clearly veterans in that category as well. And I think a number of MPs that I know and I spoke to today feel that they are in that category. So, yeah, they have a right to be very concerned about it. But Grant Shapps was very clear today to say that there's no evidence at all that the data was extracted. And there's certainly no evidence at all that the data would be exploited. So at this point in time, we don't know what was lifted, if anything, but we've got to be careful and perhaps plan for the worst case scenario.
Well, presumably at this stage, we can't know how the data could be exploited.
Well, it's a list of names and addresses, apparently, of military personnel and bank details. That was quite specific today, bank details. So what does that mean? Is it a list of bank account numbers? Is it sort codes? Is it account codes? I don't know. But the point is that I'd be quite concerned at the notion or the perception that a foreign state or malign actors have access to my bank account details. Because, of course, it stands to reason that they may be able to further exploit that in some way. So I did ask the Defence Secretary today for a number of assurances, particularly in respect of making sure that we do hit the malign actor with a sufficient diplomatic protest. What are we going to do to hold them to account? It's about making sure that the firewalls and the security of defence contractors matches that of the MOD itself, but also to make sure that everything possible is being done now to protect the data and to perhaps mitigate any damage that may be caused.
And do you think that it is okay for the MOD to be handing over all this data to an outside contractor? I mean, most people will never have heard of Shared Services Connected Limited. I mean, is that a sensible and a secure way to run the MOD?
Well, it's a fact of life that the delivery of capability in a whole variety of areas, both military and civilian, is entrusted to contractors. We pay contractors good money, whether we're procuring weapons from a contractor like Boeing or from Northrop Grumman, whether we are procuring services. This is just another example of how the MOD entrusts that work to a contractor, and they're paid handsomely for doing it. But in my view, it comes with conditions as well, and we've got to make sure now that that we can trust these contractors and that the information they hold is pretty secure.
You will have constituents who are in the armed forces who may well now fear that their personal details, their bank account details, have been hacked, and will be saying, look, this is not just a lapse in security, it's incompetence by the government.
Yeah, I think it's very hard to use that word incompetence because, of course, the work was entrusted to a contractor. So I think it's important that we understand what happened, what went wrong, how the hack occurred, what the protocols and the mechanism was for getting into the system, and then what was lifted, if anything at all. So I think we do need to just listen to the Defence Secretary today. He outlined his 8-point plan. It sounds reasonable that plan is accurate under the circumstances. We need just to wait. But he did undertake, actually, in response to my question, to come back to the chamber and to brief members of Parliament further when he had more information. And I'll make sure that I hold it to account for that as well.
James Sunderland, Conservative MP for Bracknell. Really good to have you with us. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.